Yemen to Jordan and Iraq are all included in the vast, desolate Arabian Desert. It is the fifth largest desert in the world with an area 900,000 square miles. You could believe you had landed on Mars as you cross these desolate crimson sands. However, what is that out in the distance? It appears to be a rock. Hold on, it's actually two rocks. It's the Al-Naslaa Rock formation, which consists of a boulder that has been cut in two by an improbably straight and smooth line. Wow, it appears to have been split in half by a strong laser. However, the Al-Naslaa predates the invention of lasers by millennia and is believed to be, by some at least, 488 million years old. How then could such an odd event happen? Was this an amazing achievement of prehistoric engineering? Perhaps extraterrestrials left us behind after getting lost on their route to Mars. Buckle up if you're curious to learn what caused the Al-Naslaa Rock to break in such a novel way, because we're about to investigate the ideas underlying this historic feature and find more enigmatic-looking rock formations. Theory 1. Aliens. Aliens are a constant. The Al-Naslaa is a massive structure that is 30 feet broad and 20 feet tall, balanced on two tiny stone pedestals, which is absurd to observe. How, after all, can this enormous rock remain upright? Actually, those pedestals are at the bottom of the rock. However, the wind and the sand erosion have chiseled them away, leaving the rest of the boulders sitting on top. But that doesn't explain the eerily straight path in the rock that lets a flawless sliver of blue sky through. Some observers have proposed that this is the outcome of extraterrestrial interference to explain this enigma. They contend that a UFO crashed into the rock in the Tamar Oasis and destroyed it with one of its powerful space lasers. It's difficult to accept for a number of reasons. Okay, let's don our tin hats and pretend for half a second that aliens are real. Why would a living form from outside our solar system travel millions of light years across the cosmos to split a rock in half? Maybe one of the aliens broke the rock in half by mistake while playing a delightful game of actual laser tag. Then, in order to avoid being apprehended, they immediately got back on board their spacecraft and took off. It's a fun hypothesis, but sadly it's more science fiction than reality. Theory 2. Ancient engineering. Petroglyphs of many kinds can be seen scattered around the surface of the Al-Naslaa Rock, including this image cut into the rock face showing a man leading is that a really tall horse? Perhaps it's just a tiny dude. It's believed that one of the Tamud, a prehistoric Arabian tribe who lived in the area about 2,800 years ago, created it. It must have been essential for those early desert dwellers for them to spend the time and effort carving artwork into the rock face, and if that's the case, perhaps they caused the rock's flawless split. But considering the extreme level of laser-like accuracy required, how could they do such a thing? I mean, it wasn't until 1958 that the first laser was created. Therefore, it's absurd to imagine that the Tamud would have ever created their own lasers. Water, however, is a substance that has been there for a very long time, longer even than the Tamud clan itself, and that could be to blame. It's plausible, despite how absurd it may sound, that the Tamud people were able to use water to fracture the rock. How does that operate? When water is incorporated into a hydraulic system, this characteristic of water allows it to provide a force that may shatter rocks. So it's plausible that the Tamud tribe used a device akin to a hydraulic splitting tool to cut the rock, or perhaps they somehow created laser technology, but since there is no archaeological evidence, it is exceedingly doubtful. Theory 3. All or nothing. Even if the two prior hypotheses seem entertaining, I wouldn't bring them up to any geologists if I were you, because their views about how the Al-Naslaa split happened are literally carved out of stone. Some geologists hypothesize that a mechanism known as freeze-thaw weathering may have caused the divide to occur. This happens when a portion of the desert's infrequent rainwater becomes caught in a tiny rock crack and overnight turns to ice. The desert has ice? Seems to be impossible, no? But as you can see, despite having daily average temperatures of 100 degrees Fahrenheit, the Arabian desert's nighttime lows are just 25 degrees. Due to sand's poor capacity to hold heat, the desert loses all of its heat at night when the sun isn't shining directly on it. Small amounts of water that have accumulated in the cracks of the granite freeze and expand as a result, driving the fissures to extend and enlarge. The water freezes and expands the fissure again the next night after the ice has melted and slid deeper into the rock crevice with the rising of the sun. Over a period of thousands of years, this process is repeated until the rock breaks. Therefore, it's probable that this is what caused the Al-Naslaa Rock to split. However, compared to the Al-Naslaa Formation's straight division, freeze-thaw weathering often produces more wavy lines. As a result, a lot of geologists argue that the absolute straight line was caused by a joint fracture. Joints are parallel fissures that appear in a rock as a result of either internal pressure from the rock contracting during cold winters or external strain from earthquakes shaking or tilting the rock. Which hypothesis do you believe best fits? Do you agree with the geologists, or do you believe the Al-Naslaa is evidence of extraterrestrial life? If you agree with the geologists, please click the like button. If you think it was an extraterrestrial craft, please leave a comment below. And why not click the subscribe button if you're interested in seeing more in-depth videos like this one? You done? Great. Now, what bizarre rock feature do we have next? Death Valley Haunting. One of the hottest locations on Earth is Death Valley, a desert valley that has been submerged in eastern California. It holds the world's record for the hottest air temperature ever recorded at a sweltering 134 degrees Fahrenheit back in 1913, while having normal temperatures of about 120 degrees Fahrenheit. 41 fatalities were reported in Death Valley between 2010 and 2020 alone, living true to its name. You should drink enough water when hiking in this desert to avoid suffering from heat stroke. But despite all the obvious risks, the last thing you'd anticipate is to turn around to discover rocks chasing you. Are hallucinations being caused by the extreme heat? In actuality, the rocks are moving on their own. These pebbles, often referred to as the sailing stones, have left tracks in their wake that have a maximum length of 1,500 feet, or just over 4 football fields. Given how closely related the tracks are, some of the stones even appear to be competing against one another. Although experts spent years trying to figure out what caused this peculiar geological occurrence, they were ultimately able to employ time-lapse photography in 2014 to document the stones in motion. They found that when it rained, a tiny pond was created, which later froze over when the desert's temperatures plummeted. The sailing stone was propelled down the slick route by a gentle wind as the ice sheet melted and disintegrated early that morning. Normally, the sailing stones go in straight lines, but occasionally they might deviate and move in zigzag patterns. Scientists discovered that whereas rocks with smooth bottoms wandered over the desert, those with rough bottoms tended to make straight paths. I guess I'm pleased the mystery has been cleared up. That would have been too eerie to bear if there were actual ghosts roaming Death Valley. Salt Bay City. It's likely that if you ever travel to the Denizli province in southern Turkey, the locals will advise you to visit a location named Pamukkale, which is Turkish for Cotton Castle. But this isn't a cotton candy or cotton swab-made fortress. It is a magnificent set of white plateaued steps that appear to have been sculpted out of glass. Can you determine the composition of them? If you responded ice, reconsider, as these actions are a component of a naturally occurring hot spring. There are 17 hot springs in this region, with temperatures ranging from 95 degrees Fahrenheit, which is warm enough for a good soak, to 212 degrees Fahrenheit, which is boiling, spicy. But the existence of the hot springs is what gave rise to the iconic white terraces of Pamukkale. The magma beneath the Earth's crust superheats the water in the hot springs underground. The water subsequently rises through the bedrock and becomes calcium carbonate supersaturated. The carbon dioxide gas escapes from the water when it breaks the surface, leaving a soft calcium carbonate gel behind. Then this calcium carbonate hardens, crystallizing into the famed white shimmering travertine stairs of Pamukkale. Game of Boulders. Although The Lord of the Rings and other movies were filmed in New Zealand, you can locate something on Kokoi Beach that appears to be from Game of Thrones. A group of enormous spherical stones that are hidden in the sand have an oddly dragon egg-like appearance. However, as far as we're aware, none have yet given birth to enormous flying lizards. Over 50 boulders, collectively known as the Moeraki Boulders, with diameters varying from 1.5 to 7 feet, are dispersed across the beach. And when the ocean erodes away the black mudstone cliff that the beach backs upon, more egg-shaped rocks keep emerging, increasing their number. Earlier, there were even more boulders as seen in photos from the 19th century. However, over time, individuals seeking mementos have stolen them and dug them up. Since the boulders are now protected by law, more theft cannot occur. But from whence did they come? Are they expanding within the cliff? Actually, the opposite is true. It's believed by some that it took them 4 million years to reach their current enormous size after they formed in the ocean over 60 million years ago. Layers of silt composed of plant matter and shell pieces accumulated on the sea floor, where they eventually gave rise to the boulders. It's not known what initially caused some of the rock's outer layers to shatter, but these cracks now show striking yellow calcite crystal veins. While some scientists believe the rocks were stressed as a consequence of an earthquake, others contend that the outer rock layers contracted as a result of an excessively speedy drying process. While we're talking about it, perhaps millennia ago dragons actually did emerge from them. Curious George. Professional paratrooper George Hopkins made the decision in October 1941 to wow the world by landing on a microscopic target. He chose Devil's Tower, a towering rock formation in Wyoming that towers 1,267 feet above the Belfourche River. That's higher than the Empire State Building's roof height. Despite the enormous tower's size, which spans 1,347 acres, the peak only measures 1.5 acres flat, or about the same area as a football field. But George was up for the challenge, so he tested his mettle by leaping out of a plane. He landed safely as well. However, the 1,000-foot climbing rope that was tossed out of the aircraft to help George descend instead dropped over the side of the tower, trapping him there. Because of its height, George was stuck atop Devil's Tower for 7 days before being rescued, giving him plenty of time to consider how this unusual structure came to be. The formation of Devil's Tower was caused by volcanic intrusion, in which lava boiled up through sedimentary rock strata without breaking the surface. These unusual igneous granite columns with hexagonal shapes were created as it cooled below. This columnar jointing develops as the magma-cooled rock begins to solidify and shrinks, causing the rock to break. The sedimentary rock above has been exposed by thousands of years of erosion, revealing Devil's Tower. However, before the advent of modern geological studies, local tribes thought the tower's columns were the result of a bear the size of King Kong tearing a straight swath through the mountainside. Fortunately for George, the existence of this mythical gigantic bear keeps his prank from being intolerable. Crystal sauna. Almost the majority of the minerals in the Earth are found in crystalline form, which results in a variety of beautiful colors. What if, however, there existed a large unoccupied cave with ideal circumstances where the crystals would continue to grow unabatedly? In fact, the appropriately titled Cave of Crystals, located beneath the Sierra de Naica mountain in Chihuahua, Mexico, had a similar occurrence. This 984-foot deep cave is the stuff of geologists' fantasies. It's covered in Hulk-sized interconnecting crystals that range in length from 20 to 36 feet. They are as long as a telephone pole when they're at their largest, and some of the largest crystals ever found had a diameter of nearly 3 feet. These crystals are believed by some to have started forming about 26 million years ago, and supposedly it took them 500,000 to 900,000 years to reach their current size. The intrusive groundwater was saturated with the mineral anhydrite when it entered the cave through a crack in a magma chamber. The crystal cave's magma maintained the temperature blazing high, but as it dropped just below 136 degrees Fahrenheit, anhydrite began to disintegrate into calcium and sulfate. Then these minerals started to recrystallize as selenite, a kind of gypsum. The crystals continued to develop into the enormous white crystalline spheres we see today as the temperature was maintained and there was a constant supply of water rich in minerals. Despite being dangerous to people, this atmosphere may be ideal for selenite crystals. Researchers are only able to remain there for 10 minutes without adequate protection. Even with special cooling units, geologists are only permitted to stay inside for a maximum of 1 hour at a time. Superman is the only person who can continue to live in these circumstances. It seems sensible that he named his crystal cave the Fortress of Solitude, since no one else could have lived there. Earth's Eye. With temperatures that reach 104 degrees Fahrenheit in the warmest month of the year, the Sahara Desert is one of the toughest locations on Earth. The majority of individuals want to visit there as little as possible, with the exception of camels. It's hardly surprising that one of the most magnificent geological wonders in the world stayed unnoticed for millennia, given that no one was keen to explore the desert. The first time astronauts observed a large object hiding in this desolate desert was in 1965, when they were circling the Earth. It was the Richat structure, which is often referred to as the Eye of the Sahara, because of the enormous concentric circles that uncannily give it the appearance of a giant's eye looking out of the desert. The entire eye is more than 25 miles in circumference, although the core ring dike is just 66 feet wide. It's so big that it doesn't appear to be much from the ground up, and viewing it from a height allows one to really appreciate the eye impact. It makes sense why it took so long to find out. Despite early speculation that it may be an impact crater from a large meteor, many conspiracy theorists now contend that this is actually the ancient location of the fabled buried metropolis of Atlantis due to its distinctive circular structure. It may sound bizarre, but the rings around the city's many levels are similar to the Atlantis the great philosopher Plato envisioned about 2,500 years ago. Additionally, given its closeness to the water, it is possible that at some point in the past it was submerged. Sorry to spoil Plato's party, but the elliptical structure wasn't always this way. Instead, it was a massive dome that rose out of the ground, apparently 600 million years ago. The surrounding area was lush and full of lakes and rivers, in sharp contrast to the arid desert it is now. Sandstone layers were forced upward by volcanic activity, and layers of igneous rock developed on the surface from lava deposits to create the dome. Then, a little over 100 million years ago, apparently, a tremendous volcanic eruption occurred from this dome. Due to water erosion brought on by the running rivers over the terrain, the dome eventually collapsed in on itself. At the same time, the rock started to erode. However, the sandstone and volcanic rock strata eroded at various speeds, producing this ring-like pattern. Therefore, there are no submerged cities in this area. These are just the fantasies of a conspiracy theorist. Abracadabra. A little town called Morlin Nong may be found in northeast India's East Khasi Hills. It's a cute, small community that has even won recognition as Asia's cleanest. Morlin Nong is not simply famous for its extraordinary cleanliness, though. A boulder that is suspended in the air is a geological marvel that may be found on the village's outskirts. The gravity-defying power of this enormous rock, how is it even conceivable? Well, the unparalleled capability of Photoshop has enabled this bizarre event. Yes, the photographs of the rock that have gone viral are a complete fabrication. In truth, a smaller boulder that has been airbrushed out of the picture rests on this larger one. That's disheartening, to put it mildly. However, this rock still conceals a peculiar secret. The big rock has been balanced here for thousands of years, enclosed in a wire fence. No matter how many typhoons and hurricanes have passed through the region, none have been able to topple it, and no one is aware of the original purpose for the construction of this rock structure. Skater Boy. A collection of sloping boulders in southern Arizona's Coyote Buttes Ravine appears to have been designed by nature as the ideal skate park. The wave is a geological monument that was believed to have been formed around 190 million years ago during the Jurassic period and is simply known as the wave. Here, the sand dunes were compressed and turned over time into striped sandstone. The largest trough measures 62 feet broad and 118 feet long, and it has enough for 7 half-pipes to be placed one inside the other. However, because of the structure's fragility, you regretfully can't kick some flips or whatever the cool kids call it here. The unique sloping structure of this sandstone rock, which has been chiseled away by gradual wind and rain erosion, is also a result of the rock's softness. As various regions of the rock eroded at various speeds, ridges emerged in the sandstone sides. In order to protect this, the number of visitors is restricted. Only 16 per day are granted permission to trek up this impressive monument. If only they could construct some wooden ramps over it, some of us could take advantage of really surfing these waves. Which of these bizarre rock formations did you find the most fascinating? And are there any you've seen with your own eyes? Let me know down in the comments below, and thanks for watching.